Let's see. Here's Elon Musk talking about. Well, let's listen to it.
There's a reason that we have the First Amendment, and it's important to think about that. Why does it exist? And it exists because people came from countries where they could not speak freely, where if they did speak their mind, they would be imprisoned or killed. That's why they were so concerned about freedom of speech, is because they didn't have it in the countries they came from. And in many places in the world, maybe most places, you don't have freedom of speech. And there's certainly no country has the protection on speech that the United States does. Not even Canada. So that's it's something we should really take pride in and seek to preserve. Because I think that the bedrock of democracy is freedom of speech. Because if you can't say what you want to say, then I think that's essentially political coercion. If you so anyway, there's a reason why there was a high urgency to amend the Constitution with the First Amendment. Was because if you don't have freedom of speech, you got nothing.
But hate speech. But what about hate speech? Do they hate speech? I wonder. How much do they hate speech? How much do they hate the people who say hate speech? The whole thing is completely incoherent, for one thing. What counts as hate speech to any leftist government is just anything that disagrees with them. Obviously, we just watch that every single day. If you disagree with, mass immigration policies that are clearly hurting your country, that your country clearly cannot handle, the infrastructure cannot handle, the economy cannot handle, right? That's hate. If you say, I don't think that children can consent to puberty blockers, that seems insane to me. That's hate now, right? Anything you disagree with is hate for the leftists. So, I think that personally, nobody has a right to not be offended. I think that people should be free to say things that I find abhorrent, right? Because if I take away their right to say that, I'm taking my own right to speak my mind away as well. I'm taking away my right to say anything that isn't officially approved by the regime. James Curtis says hate speech is whatever they don't like. And that is clearly true. Clearly true. Now, especially when their ideas, the things that they like, are fucking bananas. Like drag shows for children, for instance. James Curtis says men cannot have a baby. They consider that to be hate speech. In fact, I believe they consider that to be genocide. They think that, not giving children sex changes is genocide. They genuinely believe this. This is what they say. And here's another point as well. If they truly were worried about hate speech, they would have to give up their entire ideology. Like DEI, that would have to go. Gender theory, that would all have to go. All the stuff about straight white men, which, like 90% of it actually does qualify as hate speech, singling out certainly a single race of people for all of the world's ills. This insanely ahistoric belief that white people are uniquely guilty of all of the world's sins and everybody else was just living in these Edenic paradises before those evil white people came along. It's completely ahistoric. The world has been a terrible place. And in fact, outside of the Western world, it's still, in many places, it's still a terrible place. Send a feminist to Saudi Arabia for a year. Send a feminist to Afghanistan for a year. See how she likes the patriarchy there. Right? Will she even think there's a patriarchy here anymore? This mythical, magical patriarchy that they seem to be convinced exists here. Well, there's a real one over in Afghanistan. Go there for a year. See how you like it. So yeah, if they really wanted to get rid of hate speech, they'd have to get rid of their own ideology. Again, singling out one race of people as uniquely guilty for all of history's crimes. That sounds like something we've heard before. That usually doesn't end well, does it? And of course, it's utterly ridiculous. They think that punctuality was invented by white people to oppress the world. They think that white people invented slavery. They actually believe that. Yeah, all the nonsense about straight white men constantly. It's on the news. So Joy Reid is constantly going on about how evil straight white men are. To me, that sounds like hate speech to me. I mean, I personally think she should be free to say it, but by their own rules, by their own standards, they shouldn't tolerate that. But I mean, the problem is that that's their entire ideology. They're not going to throw it away. What they'll continue to do is being utterly and totally hypocritical and incoherent and hateful because they can.